Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master. And before we get into today's episode, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and leave us a comment. That helps us out with the YouTube algorithm, but also we love to hear from you guys. We've got an awesome community here, and that's thanks to you. So thank you so much for being here. So, all that said, let's dive in. The prologue to today's story takes place on Earth 550 million and 75, where the current year is 1975. And our friendly neighborhood Spider Man is on the run from the cops in the spider buggy. He thinks he sees an alley and tries to drive into it, but as it turns out, this is an illusion. He drives right through a wooden fence, and both Spider Man and the spider buggy crash into the water. Old Webhead survives, of course, but his vehicle isn't so lucky. A very waterlogged Spider Man drags himself onto the dock downstream from where the police are shining flashlights at the cold night water. He overhears them say something about how New York will be a better place without a criminal like Spider Man in it. So they make no effort to recover a body, which does nothing to help Spider Man with his depression. And to make matters even worse, his web shooters are full of water, so he can't even use webs to make his way home. A very tired and very overworked Spider Man slowly makes his way back to his new apartment on foot. And when he gets there, he doesn't even own any furniture yet. So he has to sleep on a hard wooden floor using his wet costume as a makeshift pillow. Which brings us to the main plot of today's game session. The next day, Peter Parker falls asleep during one of his college classes. When the bell rings, it wakes him up, and the other students leave, but his professor asks him to stay, adding that Parker is here to learn, not rest. The professor says something about Peter partying all night long, but Peter says it's not like that. The professor tells Parker that he's his brightest student, but he needs to get it together. He's already failed this class last semester, and if it happens again, he's done for. Peter says he'll try to do better and then tiredly walks away. Waiting for Peter in the hallway is Mary Jane Watson. She tells him that he looks like death warmed over, and he says that's a pretty fair assessment. They walk through the quad at the center of campus, and MJ holds his hand. When she does, though, Peter feels a twinge of guilt. He was in love with Gwen Stacy, but now she's gone. And poor Peter has survivor's guilt. He's reluctant to move on and try to find happiness, but he can't help but wonder if he could have a future with MJ. That night, Spider Man is tired, but is out on patrol anyway. He swings past a McDonald's and uses a web line to steal a bag of fast food from a random customer. Just as he's getting ready to drop some cash on the guy to pay for what he took, he gets sprayed by some weird mist. Spider Man stumbles and actually falls off the roof, reaching out to grab something to slow his fall. And when he does grab a hold of something, it jerks on his arm. So his shoulder is killing him now. That's when Mysterio attacks. He uses various illusions, including a truck driving on a wall. And that mist that he sprayed Spider Man with made him more gullible. So Spidey can't seem to get it through his sleep deprived head that the truck isn't real. A weary Spider Man dives onto the ground only to hurt his elbow. So now both of his arms are compromised. Then Mysterio creates another illusion using holograms. And now, coming out of the wall like ghosts, are Doc Ock, the Green Goblin, Grizzly, the Lizard, Morbius, the Tarantula, and the Vulture. Spider Man punches through these ghosts, hits the wall, and almost breaks his hands on the stone. The encounter seems to be over, and Spider-Man is left wondering how he could have just gotten attacked by Mysterio when Mysterio died in prison a year ago. So Spider-Man goes home and tries to get some sleep while his hands slowly begin to heal. As he does, a dimensional portal opens up and out steps one of the many copies of Arthur. His empire recently acquired various bits of technology from some rival empires, including a scanner from Reich 5 that can detect superpowered beings. Arthur's empire has reverse engineered that scanner, and this one tells Arthur that Spider Man is close. So he goes to Spidey's new apartment building and heads for Peter's room. But before he can knock on the door, he runs into Gloria Grant, who is an African American model who lives down the hall from Peter. She's normally flirty, and that tendency is even stronger when you consider that Arthur in GURPS has the very handsome advantage. And in Dungeons and Dragons, they give Arthur a charisma of 18. So in both of those systems, he is as good looking as is possible for a human being. So Gloria shoots her shot, and to put it mildly, pretty girls are Arthur's weakness. If a girl has what GURPS refers to as attractive, Arthur needs to roll a 5 or better to resist her. If the girl is beautiful, he needs a 10 or better. And if she's very beautiful, he needs a 15 or better. Anyways, so Arthur rolls a 3 on the dice, and that means he basically forgets all about why he's here, and he takes up Glory's offer to come back to her place for a drink. The next morning, Spider Man wakes up and he barely healed any through the night. He wraps his hands in bandages, even putting on his gloves over top of the injuries is super painful. He then heads back to that dock that he crashed through, where he swims down to check on the spider buggy, which is still underwater. Spidey comes back up for air and briefly complains about how much even swimming hurts his hands. And as soon as he gets out of the water, he encounters Mysterio. Spider Man dives at him, but passes harmlessly through the villain. So Mysterio takes off his fishbowl shaped helmet and reveals that he is headless. Spider Man asks how he did that, and Mysterio says he's a ghost and he's going to haunt Spider Man for ruining his life. Spider Man shoots webs at Mysterio, but the villain vanishes. Peter then goes back to his apartment, and just as he's getting there, the phone is ringing. So he enters the apartment and sits down on his bare wooden floor and answers the phone. And on the other end is Aunt May. She asks him how he's doing. And as he changes out of his wet Spider Man costume, he's so sleepy and worn down and drugged that he actually admits he's not doing so good. Peter hangs his wet suit in the shower where it drips water into the tub. He changes into some street clothes, and Aunt May asks about his problems. This snaps Peter out of it, and he beats himself up for admitting that anything was wrong. So he downplays it, and he starts to insist that everything is fine. Just then, Mary Jane stops by, and Peter, for a second, thinks he sees the Kingpin standing behind her. So he throws the heavy old telephone at Kingpin. Mary Jane is shocked and turns only to see that Kingpin is not there at all. And Aunt May is less than thrilled by Peter throwing the phone mid conversation. Aunt May scolds Peter for doing such a thing, and he says he has to go because MJ just got there. Mary Jane tells Peter that he's been acting strangely, and just then Peter's new landlady, Mrs. Muggins, shows up, reminding Peter that this is an apartment building and not a gymnasium for boxers. He apologizes to Mrs. Muggins, and then Gloria and Arthur come to see what all that commotion was about. Mary Jane asks who this is, and Peter introduces Gloria as Glory. And at first, MJ seems a little bit jealous, But then she notices Gloria hanging on Arthur and decides that those two seem to be a couple, so she doesn't really comment on how Peter knows her. Arthur says, "You don't look so good, Peter." And again, Spider Man is tired, he's worn too thin, and he's still drugged from Mysterio's gas weapon, so he doesn't even pick up on the fact that Arthur knew his name without Gloria introducing them. Gloria and MJ really don't pick up on that either, because right now the two are being just a little bit catty with each other for a second. Gloria invites everyone to a party that she's throwing later on, and everybody accepts. After that, Peter and MJ swing by the Daily Bugle so Peter can pick up what passes for a paycheck. While there, Betty Brant asks MJ how she feels about Peter, and MJ says she wasn't sure before, but now she might want something serious. MJ says Peter's been acting strangely, and she hints that she might even be in love with him, and she's worried about him. Just then, Ned walks up and asks if Betty told MJ the news. And the news is that they set a wedding date. They tell Peter too, and Peter and MJ congratulate them. After that, Peter and MJ take the Daily Bugle's elevator downstairs. And as they do, Peter starts talking about how he used to be in love with Betty and how it's kind of messing with his head that now she's getting married. Mary Jane listens to what Peter has to say, but she's not super into him talking about how much he's loved other girls. When the elevator reaches the lobby and the doors open up, Peter sees Gwen Stacy. He chases her out onto the street where he's almost hit by a truck. Gwen is just gone, and Peter wonders if she was a ghost too. And because he's focused on that, he doesn't notice that Arthur is following him. Mary Jane doesn't notice either. Instead, she runs over to Peter and reminds him he almost got himself hit by a truck. Again, he tells her he thought he saw Gwen, the love of his life, which does nothing to endear himself to Mary Jane. Peter says he wants to be alone and that he'll call MJ later, so he just leaves. MJ is frustrated with him, but says nothing. She heads home. Peter then ducks into an alley, changes into Spider Man, and climbs the wall, heading for the rooftops of New York. Arthur has seen enough to know something's not right with Spider Man, so for now he just follows and observes, using his strength to jump from rooftop to rooftop, sort of like the Tick, but with far more stealth. The sun sets, and as Spider Man patrols the city, he goes to where Mysterio tricked him into crashing the spider buggy. Spider Man sees light through a skylight, and when he looks down into it, it's Mysterio's headquarters. So Spider Man crashes in through a window, and what he fails to notice is right next to the window, with its back against the wall, is a Mysterio robot. The real Mysterio the real Mysterio is at a large retro bank of computer controls. And on his turn, he has to decide what to do. So he activates the Mysterio robot so the two Mysterios can team attack Spider Man. That's when Arthur crashes down through the skylight. So the Mysterio robot attacks Arthur. And we used HeroClix figurines for the miniatures, and we used a map of Mysterio's lair that we drew on a dry erase board. And what both Mysterios do is they hide which space on the map they are actually in. The holograms can make the space a Mysterio is in appear to be an empty space, while conversely, an empty space can seem to have a Mysterio in it. So Arthur picks up the broken glass from the floor and he crushes it in his hand, turning it into fine glass dust. Then he throws it where he thinks the Mysterios might be. The glass dust reflects the various beams of light being projected, but this does not work as well as he'd hoped, and both Mysterios manage to hit the heroes with lasers, doing damage. Spider Man shoots webs everywhere, And when he sees an invisible Mysterio disturb his web, he attacks that spot. And this strategy works really well for the wall crawler. Arthur, meanwhile, has a higher initiative than Mysterio, so he holds action and waits for Mysterio to hit him. Then, when he does, Arthur knows where the other Mysterio is and charges in that direction. When he feels that he has collided with the Mysterio robot, he grapples with it and gets it in a bear hug, crushing it slowly. It takes 4 rounds of crushing damage before the Mysterio robot shuts down. Meanwhile, Spider Man is fighting Mysterio 2, aka Danny Burkhart. As before, Mysterio is doing his headless horseman routine where he takes off the globe, but nothing is there. So Spider Man punches where Mysterio's head should be, and this does damage. As it turns out, Danny is wearing a mask that is a gadget with the invisibility power. So that is on his head, but under the fish globe, helmet. And Danny is an ex stuntman who would drink on the job and show up to work drunk. So he got blacklisted. And the original Mysterio was a fellow stuntman slash special effects expert. So since they were friends, the original Mysterio hired Danny to be a henchman. So even though the original Mysterio does genuinely seem to be dead, Danny still had access to all of his gear, and he knew that Spider-Man would become a thorn in his side. So he decided to strike Spidey first, take him out of the picture, so that Danny could make his fortune as a supervillain. Arthur jokes, saying, and he would have gotten away with it too, if not for us meddlesome. Geez, I can't talk today. He would have gotten away with it too, if not for us meddlesome kids and that darn dog. Spider Man gives Arthur a look and suggests he leaves the jokes to him. The heroes then turn Mysterio over to the NYPD. Afterwards, Spidey asks Arthur how it happened that he showed up like that, and Arthur tells Spider Man his entire story, including how he's a friend of the Peter Parker of Earth K. The Spider Man of this Earth asks Arthur what that Peter is like, and he tells him that his world Spider Man married MJ and they had a daughter that they named after Aunt May, which is a big deal for this Spider Man, who, like we said earlier, had been wrestling with whether or not he could ever be happy again. So hearing Arthur talk about his variant gives him hope that maybe in this universe things will be okay too. Which brings us to the epilogue. Peter and Mary Jane go to Gloria Grant's party where they hang out with Gloria and Arthur. Mary Jane feels more secure now that she sees Gloria sitting on Arthur's lap on the couch. She says something about how she wondered how well Peter knew Gloria. Peter says Gloria's just a neighbor. Besides, I already have a girlfriend, don't I? Mary Jane raises her eyebrows at that since they've never really officially declared it. And then a smile slowly spreads over her face. And she says, "That you do, Tiger. That you do." And that was it for this game session. As is often the case, we enjoyed playing it. Hopefully, you enjoyed hearing about it. If so, as always, smash like, make sure you're subscribed, and leave us a comment. And from all of us here at the longest running superhero role playing game on earth, we hope you have a good one, and we'll see you in the next adventure. Bye.